General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson.
What an amazing weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Trento, your host, 11:04 in the morning. We got so much going on. I want you to text your neighbors and friends and call them, whatever. You got to listen to the show at right around 11:15. We have one of the world's experts on Iran, somebody that was kidnapped by the PLO years ago in the 80s and held for 24 days. He's written extensively on Islamic Jihad in the Middle East, and he's an expert on Iran, written extensively, served on President Trump's National Security Advisory Board in 2016. He will be with us at 11:15. Ken Timmerman, and remember that name. He's going to help us understand exactly what's going on. Unbelievable. I don't know if you experience what I experience. When I turn on the news, as you know, here on the Trento Show, where we try to make America think again so you can vote intelligently on November 3rd, 2020. We have about 302 days from today. And everything in your life and your kids' life in the future, every decision over the next 302 days as it relates to the election, everything related to that will impact your life directly. If you're a Marxist, if you're a Mohammedan, if you're someone who's anti-American, and Mohammedans who follow Islamic doctrine, and Marxists who follow the doctrine of Marx, and we have many of those in this country, many of those running for president right now on the Democrat side. If you're one of them, you have abandoned the basic canons of a Republican constitutional form of government as articulated by the framers, those who framed the doctrines for our country, and the founders, those who were there in the beginning, and as we said, who have offered their lives and their fortunes and their honor. On Wednesday, the show we were going to play on Friday, we taped it because we were going to the evangelical rally on Friday night. Man, how many things. J. Mark Campbell, are you in the control room?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I could hear your voice. That's amazing. We had a little glitch in the beginning. How about Midwest Dick? You there?
Midwest Dick is on.
All right. We got the crew here. And we have a visitor, it looks like, coming in. All right. Yeah.
Hey, Ronnie. All right. Celebration.
Dynamic.
It's downstairs, the opener. How you doing? Good to see you. Jump on a mic. We have a visitor here, a Middle East expert, Dr. Ronnie Wexler. We got the full crew here today, and we're going to help you wade your way through a critical situation in the world and the globe, but not as critical as you may think as it relates to Ken Timmerman's analysis, an expert's analysis on the Middle East, in particular on Iran. But if you're like me and you're watching all the news shows over the weekend, and I get Al Jazeera and all of this stuff. Al Jazeera is out of Qatar. It's basically the Muslim Brotherhood funded CNN. Sometimes I confuse it. I got CNN on. I go, am I watching Al Jazeera? Or I'll have Al Jazeera on. I go, am I watching CNN? I mean, they're very close. And here's my point, and here's the big idea we want you to leave with from the Trento Show today on January 6th, Monday, the first Monday really of the new year. Is it the first Monday of the new year? I guess it is. Here's the big idea. We now have a Democrat Party. And if you're a Democrat, I want you to listen. Get beyond the hyperbole and the rhetoric and the emotion and all of that. Get to the essence of what I'm going to say. We have a Democrat Party that sounds like the propaganda wing of the Iranian government. I mean, we're having people say that how could a leader of the free world, Donald Trump, independently assassinate the leading general of a sovereign nation. J. Mark, did you hear that? How can the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, independently call for the assassination of a general, the legitimate general? He's a general in a sovereign nation. How could that be with it not being a war crime?
Did I miss something? Did the UN and United States declare Hezbollah a designated terrorist organization?
I think the State Department in the United States and I think other entities worldwide have declared the IRGC as a designated terrorist organization.
It wasn't Soleimani the head of that terrorist organization?
Qassem Soleimani, the guy who got fried by a couple of missiles, is indeed for about 20 years the head of the IRGC and in particular the Quds force.
Okay. One other question.
So the whole world thinks he's a bad guy.
Hold on. Well, no, because I thought Obama.
Except the Democrat Party.
Essentially, Obama designated him a terrorist, did he not?
Yes, he did.
So Obama designated him a global terrorist like Osama bin Laden.
Right.
Who we killed, who Obama killed.
Obama killed. Obama did it.
Obama got a.
So is Obama an assassin, or is he, or is?
Oh, your questions are so perplexing. What are we going to do? Look,
so Obama's an assassin.
Look, folks, Tom Trento here, your host at 11:10 in the morning, and beautiful, cool, crisp Monday morning in South Florida. Let me give you a little overview of the week. Today we're going to deal with Ken Timmerman, Iranian expert on all of this. He wrote an article that said, hey, relax, everybody. Iran, this could be the beginning of the end of the current regime in Iran. And we're going to systematically go through the options that Iran has and what the potential consequence, second, third effects to those responses. And we're going to dive inside the psychological mind of the typical Iranian leader who believes theocratically in bringing forth an apocalyptic end that will bring their Messiah back, the 12th Imam, bring him back, and then he will take control of the world and everything will be fine. I mean, that's in the minds of the Ayatollahs and the various leaders. Do they really believe this? Sure, some of them do. Are they willing to go to the mat against the United States military, Donald Trump, at this point? We're going to find out. But we're going to think through all of that. But the big idea is I want all the Democrats in particular. And we're going to Israel May 18th through the 29th. We're going into the Middle East. We'll be on the border of Hezbollah. If you like a little bit of excitement in your life, and it's always safe, don't worry about that. If you like a little bit of excitement, we'll be on the border where Hezbollah is. You'll see the Hezbollah flags right from the outposts where we go, where we stand. You don't even need binoculars. Just yellow and green flags flying, Hezbollah a couple hundred meters away. We'll be on the Syrian border in Quneitra, where there's still some unrest going on in certain parts of Syria. So we're going to bring you there on a special election mission to understand what's going on with the bad guys. What? The what? Oh, he's on? Oh, the video. Okay. So we're going on May 18th, coming back on the 29th, and we invite you to come. Go to our website, Jerusalem Day 2020, JerusalemDay2020.com. If there ever was a time to be in the Middle East to understand this stuff, now is the time to go. So sign up. The seats are limited. And you go, you think it's counterintuitive. Why would I want to go there if there's all this unrest? Well, if you're the kind of person that wants to know what's going on and be in the middle of where all of this is taking place, and if there's serious problems, obviously we don't go. We change things around. It's not a problem. But we've always been able to go. Not a problem. There's not going to be any issue because, as you see on this show, the Islamic Republic of Iran, remember that Islamic Republic of Iran, they have extremely limited options, very limited options. So this thing is going to blow over. There'll be a couple of little events, and we'll hear from Ken Timmerman on this.
They're a paper tiger, Tom.
They are really a paper tiger because they are a tiger. They have some counterattack capabilities. If they had a nuclear weapon, this would be a different discussion. This is why they can't have it. But the big idea that we want you to have today at 11:13 in the morning, Tom Trento, your host, Trento Show. The big idea on WNN 1470 is that the Democrat Party is now members of the Democrat Party and members of the candidates running for office are starting to sound like the propaganda wing of Iran, which, if you had to define the word treasonous, starts to move in that direction. Have they become treasonous traitors? No. At this point, they really stop short. They go, oh, Soleimani's a bad guy. He needed to die. But now we've unleashed holy hell. We've thrown dynamite into tinder, all of this.
Right.
In the real world politic, when you got evil people that are killing you and killing your people, you either have to do something or do nothing. Donald Trump did something, and there's going to be a fight. There has to be a fight. We fight now or we fight later. Very simple. But the point is the Democrats have become unpatriotic for sure.
Yes.
Treasonous, we'll leave that as an open question.
Well, I look at it this way, Tom. They're at war with us. They say it all the time, and they want to come after us. And it's like being in a fight. Someone comes up here and whacks you in the face. All right, you whack them back. Then they come at you again. And then you take them down, you pin them down, and you say, okay, I'm going to beat the snot out of you till you give up. You let me know when it's over. Tap out when you think it's over. If they keep going, you keep whacking them and say, okay, let me know when you're done. And that's the position we're in. We're on top of them, and we're a lot bigger, we're a lot stronger, and they have to give up. Let us know when you guys want to tap out.
Yeah, Midwest Dick. That's not a bad analysis on Mark's part. You weigh in? You've been looking at the news and following this, and Midwest Dick runs with Mary at the United West, the Sharia Crime Stoppers. And if you'll watch that every Tuesday night, when does it start up again, Dick?
January 13th. We're going Monday, Tuesday, and some Thursdays. It's going to be a big winter.
So a week from today, is that what it is?
Yes.
Wow, excellent. You'll see you can meet Midwest Dick at the Sharia Crime Stoppers. Go to the unitedwest.org, and he and Mary host a tremendous. Give us a quick overview of what people can see in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. January 13th, Claire Lopez on the news on the current topics. We've got Robert Spencer on the 14th, Tuesday night. And we have a surprise coming on the 16th. You're going to want to follow. Thursday the 16th, we've got new news. Should we break the news, Tom?
Oh, you got a great person coming on.
We have a wonderful person coming on the 16th on the webinar circuit. That would be Mr.
Me. I'll be there.
Tom Trento live.
That's right.
Able to take your questions live on the 16th. That's Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget that.
I love talking to people.
That's the best thing. Last time we did a live broadcast like that, the place caught fire the next day.
That's true. That's right.
Exactly what happened.
You're going to set our studio on fire?
Yeah,
We will be in the studio
right.
all throughout the winter. And by the way, you asked for a comment on what Mark said. I guess Mark, to be nailed it last week, he talked about the Democratic Party, all these candidates.
Democrat Party, please.
Yeah, not Democratic. Come on.
Absolutely.
All right.
The Democrat Party positions themselves as the victim, as the abused in an abusive relationship. That was brilliant. Mark came up with that. It's an abusive relationship. You take it. And I think we all know what happens to the abused party. So we're now turning the tables. We have a president.
Ken Timmerman is on the line.
Who will not be abused. And I think, Mark, you did a really good job with that analogy.
Thank you. But right now we're in a fight with these guys, knuckleheads, and I've been in fights where the guy's just like, all right, when are you going to stop? Because I don't want to keep hitting you, but you're going to make me keep hitting you. I will till you stop. That's where we're at. When are you guys going to stop? You let me know. I'll stop hitting you when you guys are ready to say uncle, tap out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Tom Trento, your host here on WNN 1470, 95.3, 1118 in the morning. And I believe we have Ken Timmerman. Ken, are you with us?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Ken? It's been a few years. I obviously follow your work. You do amazing work. How's life been?
Well, Tom, what a new year this has been with this amazing.
We had him. While he gets back on the line, I must have dropped his son. He may be driving.
There, you got him?
No. I'm here.
Okay, great. Ken,
it's just beginning of the new year with this amazing event in Baghdad. I just watched the drone footage of it. So this was U.S. Air Force Special Forces and a Spectre gunship in an amazing raid at Baghdad Airport.
It was a C-130 Spectre gunship or a drone.
Yes.
What hit him?
No, it was a C-130 Spectre gunship. And by the way, I've got a tremendous echo here. Very difficult to speak. I don't know if I'm on a feedback loop.
All right, let's. I'll tell you what. Why don't you try calling back in?
Let me try.
Okay.
Try something.
We'll do that right now.
All right, well, you hang on. We're working on it in this studio here. And I want to give a little background. Ken Timmerman, who's on, folks. Tom Trento, your host, WNN 1470, 1119 in the morning. Ken has been at this for a while. He's an investigative reporter, a war correspondent, an author, a friend. He's been in the Middle East for spending the last 20, 30 years of his life going back and forth. He was there. I think you were there, Ken, right after the Beirut bombing in 83. Were you there then? We lost him. We'll get him back. But to give you a little bit of his background, he was actually nominated, and you're not supposed to.
Hopefully it don't feedback again.
All right. Let's see. Ken, you there? Let's see if you have any feedback.
I am here.
All right. We're waiting for Ken.
I'm here.
Yeah. Let me hear you speak, Ken.
Yeah, Tom, Ken Timmerman. I'm up in northeastern Florida.
Okay. You're in a great state. How's the feedback? Any problem?
You still have feedback.
Oh, you're still having feedback. Why don't you?
I'll just make it. I will make it. Okay.
I'll call him.
Well, we got to get his number for that.
I'll call him.
I don't have his number. I don't want to give it out over the air. You have it? No. All right. Let's just try. Well, let's see. Ken, look.
I'll call Joe and have him give you
Yeah, we're gonna call you from the studio, and that may work because we need to have you here. It's a very critical day. So you hang on, Ken. I'm gonna go on, and then you can call the studio, Mark, and have them talk to him offline. We don't want to give out your phone number over the air, obviously. So all right, let me tell you a little bit about Ken Timmerman. He was nominated in 2006
Can you hear me?
For a Nobel Peace Prize. Mark, you're on the line, Mark. I could hear you. Because of his tremendous work on exposing, in 2006, 14 years ago, exposing Iran's nuclear weapons program. And a movie that really brought all of that together was called Iranium. That was done by the Clarion Project. I'm actually one of the subject matter experts that was consulted on that movie that Ken was in. So we crossed paths there. But since around the mid-'90s, he's been running the Foundation for Democracy in Iran, and he's been part of the Pentagon's Joint Counterterrorism Training Academy. So he's got tremendous credentials, obviously. Run for office a couple of times, but very few people have the insight that Ken has. He was a young reporter in 1982, and he was in the Middle East in the Lebanon area, and he was taken hostage by Palestinian guerrilla fighters in Beirut. The guy we're going to talk to was held for 24 days by the Palestinian guerrilla fighters, and they eventually released him. And Simon Wiesenthal, the great Nazi hunter, he said of Ken, I'm giving the background so you understand the depth and gravity of the individual we're talking to, because Ken Timmerman, his view on this is, relax, everybody. You're listening to an Iran that's going to make a lot of noise. Remember Baghdad Bob in Iraq? They're going to make a lot of noise, and they do have capability, obviously. But they may not exercise it, because if Donald Trump continues in the direction he's going, they know they're on the losing end of this. So it's a battle between their theological and cultural need for revenge, which is part of their belief system, and the reality of the revenge bringing complete devastation to large parts of Tehran. So that's the situation. We're trying to work out the audio problem. But Simon Wiesenthal said about Ken, he said, look, I've spent my life tracking the Nazi murderers of yesterday. Ken Timmerman is tracking the Islamic murderers of tomorrow. So you can hear that, Mark. You can hear that over your microphone. Mike, you can hear that over your microphone. Yeah, well, we don't we don't want to give out Ken's phone number to these people, to anybody. All right, Tom Trento, your host here. Perfect time for me to explain what's going on next weekend. I told you that I was at a New Year's party. Sometimes they look like Halloween parties. And met some folks there that are involved in a fascinating play that has both adults and children, James and the Giant Peach. And if you know anything about James and the Giant Peach, it's a fantasy tale about James, who winds up growing a giant peach, and there's these weird animals, Mr. Centipede and Mr. Frog and all of this, that come out of it and take him on this magnificent journey, experiencing various elements of what life is all about. Well, it's a play that's taking place next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Wellington High School, Wellington, Florida, which is a bit north of Palm Beach. And if you want information, you can get it. I'm going to give you a phone number to call. Phone number to call is 561-723-6154. 561-723-6154. What are we doing there? Okay. He's on that line there. We're going to do it that way. Okay, great. So James and the Giant Peach, call for information. Really fascinating, adults and children, and take your kids to it. It's a play where they can learn about a child who had a very rough upbringing with his parents and with his aunt, and then goes through life and comes out a good kid on the other side. Very, very uplifting. James and the Giant Peach next weekend at Wellington High School. We got Ken back. Ken Timmerman. We worked through the audio problem in way up there in northwest Florida. You with us?
Northeast, I am.
Oh, northeast. Okay. Well, you know, the whole north is a different world. I mean, we're in South Florida.
Yes.
And the north is like South Georgia. That's what the north is to those of us down here, Ken.
Well, you know, Tom, if I walk across the river up here, I'm in South Georgia.
There you are, right. Well, while we were sorting that out, I gave folks a bit about your background. And there seems to be a lot of interest in the fact that you were taken hostage by the Palestinians in 1982. What, just as a prelude to what we're going to talk about Iran, give us a little bit of context for that.
Well, that was kind of my introduction to the Middle East. I'd been a reporter based in Paris for a number of years at that point, went to cover the 1982 war, and was at that point, I thought, pro-Palestinian, because that's what everybody was in France. And instead of being welcomed with open arms by my so-called friends, they welcomed me with open arms and threw me into a dungeon with 16 other people, a candle per day underground, and we got bombed day and night for about 3.5 weeks when I was with them, and ultimately learned that our freedom lay at the end of an Israeli tank barrel. And I've been going back to the Middle East ever since. I am a Christian Zionist, if you wish, a strong supporter of Israel from that day on. And I also came to know my Lord Jesus Christ in the darkness, who literally brought me up into the light.
Wow.
So it was a momentous event for me, not just professionally, but also spiritually and personally.
Well, in the 37 years from there, you've developed a legacy with a body of your information. We have in our studio today, in our control room, we have J. Mark Campbell, who was working with you to get the audio sorted out. We have Midwest Dick, and we have Dr. Ronnie Wexler, an Israeli-American who owns the travel company with which we take our tours, our national security tours each year. And he has tremendous expertise, obviously, on the Middle East, fought in the 67 war, fought in the 73 war. So we got three good guys in the control room. We got me here. We have you there. For our listening audience, we want to make sense out of this mess. Ken Timmerman, why in the world are the Democrats and the leftists in this country why are they sounding like the propaganda wing of Iran?
It's truly astonishing, Tom, to listen to that. It's a knee-jerk reaction. I think, as in much of the media, the New York Times in particular, they are so overwhelmed with Trump hatred, with Trump delusion syndrome, that they can't see the truth staring them right in the face. Qassem Soleimani is somebody with so much American blood and Israeli blood on his hands. I think we can truly say with no irony whatsoever, justice has been brought to him. Very important, justice has been brought to him. This is a man who deserved the fate that he met at the hands of those gunners in a U.S. Air Force Special Operations Spectre gunship. And to hear Nancy Pelosi and people like Chris Van Hollen, who I ran against when I ran for Congress in 2012, say on Fox News Sunday that if Donald Trump goes after a cultural site in Iran, he'll be committing a war crime. These things are just astonishing. It shouldn't be happening in America. They should take off those ideological blinders and realize we're dealing with a deadly enemy who's been killing Americans for decades. And finally, we had a president who did the right thing.
Ken, let's put a timeline together, and we'll walk through it. Then I'm going to go to my esteemed colleagues in the control room if they have any questions. Tom Trento, the bottom of the hour, 11:31 on WNN 1470, 95.3 South Florida, from Miami to North Palm Beach on terrestrial radio. If you're in your car, ladies and gentlemen, you can turn to 1470, 95.3. Tell your friends and family. We're here. Our goal is to mobilize. I don't know if you're aware of this, Ken. We're on the air because we're mobilizing 1,000,001 evangelical Christians to learn to vote intelligently on November 3rd and bring the state of Florida into the Trump side of the agenda. Out of 9.5 million votes cast in 2016, Donald Trump won by a mere 112,000 votes. Unbelievable. The state is the major battleground right now. We have the Marxist left led by Andrew Gillum, who ran against Ron DeSantis for governor in 2018, joined with the Islamic jihadis. Not too long ago, Ilhan Omar was here at a CARE fundraiser. So the Mohammedans and the Marxists have joined together attacking Donald Trump, which is the Judeo-Christian worldview. We have an epic battle in the key state of Florida going on. So we're on the radio to make sense out of all of this. Now, with this crisis before us, let's put a quick timeline together. I know you did 2 years ago a video with Bob, Rob Bartlett. Yeah, I had met him and interviewed him. Great guy. And in that video, you laid out a litany of the offenses, the culpable offenses of Soleimani. Just go through that litany to stipulate for the audience, this is a bad guy. And then I want you to answer the question, because I was astonished. I think I was watching Al Jazeera this morning, or it could have been CNN. I confused the two of them. Someone said, how can the leader of the free world independently kill a distinguished general of a sovereign nation? Right? And that sounds, without committing a war crime, without that being a war crime. Right? So give us a timeline of Soleimani's dastardly deeds, and then we'll start dissecting what took place and what the implications are.
Well, we know, for example, that he was involved in the 1992 bombing of the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. 1994, the Amia Jewish Center in Buenos Aires, 86 innocent civilians having nothing to do with anything were murdered by his thugs. In Iraq, during the U.S. surge from 2006, 2007, 2008, he supplied the local jihadi groups with explosively formed penetrators specifically to attack U.S. troops. These were armor-piercing IEDs. The low-end estimate I've heard is there was 600 American servicemen killed by these weapons supplied by Qassem Soleimani and his Quds force. The upper end is way over 1,000. He's been involved in Afghanistan, supporting the Taliban. He's been involved in Yemen, supporting these Houthi rebels. He's been involved in the Syrian civil war, where the current estimate is something like 400,000 people have died as a result of his aggression. He is in Lebanon. His chief henchman for many, many years was a Lebanese Hezbollahi called Imad Mughniyeh. Imad Mughniyeh was Soleimani's deputy, if you wish, in organizing the September 11th, 2001 attacks on America. I was involved with attorneys representing some of the families of victims in these 9/11 attacks. And we took this case to a district court in New York in 2011, got a preliminary judgment for about $6 billion, another one for $4 billion more, so it's $10 billion against Iran because of their direct material involvement in the September 11 attacks on America. And Qassem Soleimani was at the very center of those attacks with his henchman, Imad Mughniyeh, the Lebanese guy who was the liaison to al-Qaeda. They brought Saad bin Laden to Iran, that's the son of Osama bin Laden, in May of 2001 to cement the plans for 9/11. Now you can read in the 9/11 Commission report that Iran facilitated travel of 8 to 10 of the muscle hijackers. The brilliant New York Times was
I was going to raise that with Mike Pence. Go ahead. Yeah.
Vice President Mike Pence for having dared to mention such a thing, because everybody knows there's no Iranian involvement in 9/11. Well, unfortunately, the brilliant reporter at the failing New York Times didn't even read his own newspaper, because his own newspaper has reported on this in 2004 and again in 2011. Unbelievable. But so Qassem Soleimani was involved in 9/11. He was the mastermind of the Benghazi attacks, again on September 11th, this time September 11th, 2012. I wrote about that in Dark Forces, the truth about what happened in Benghazi, and in my more recent book, Deception, which is about the YouTube video, but where I have a new document from the Defense Intelligence Agency that essentially lays out the Quds force involvement in the Benghazi attacks. These are stories that the American media will not tell you because they involve the Iranian government, which they believe is a much better and more humane government than that of the United States of America when it's run by Republicans.
All right, so I think we can stipulate, folks. Tom Trento, your host, Trento Show here.
Can I bring up one point? Ken.
Yeah.
He was so bad even Obama listed him as a specially designated terrorist. Is that not correct?
That's correct, and took him off the list under the Iran deal.
Yeah, under the Iran deal, they had to take him off and then float him a little bit of money, about $150 billion that he used to
with a B.
Sorry, yeah, $1 billion. Yeah. All right, so we can stipulate for the sake of the audience, 11:38 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host, Ken Timmerman. Ken, how do you want to be known? If somebody wants to get in touch with you, follow up, how can they reach you right now?
The easiest way is my website, kentimmerman.com. I'm an author. I've written 11 books of nonfiction, 3 novels. I've got a new book coming out, by the way, in March called The Election Heist, which is how the Democrats plan to steal the 2020 election. So this is something, it's a political thriller, but something I know an awful lot about, the election machines and how they can be hacked. But I do national security stories. I've been working on the Middle East for the past 35 years. I also have a nonprofit foundation called the Foundation for Democracy in Iran, Iran.org. So I work with defectors from Iranian intelligence. I do debriefings of those defectors. I've done it for many, many years as a private individual for my foundation and also for the victims of the 9/11 attacks in the lawsuits against Iran.
Okay. With that as the context for your work, we can stipulate Qassem Soleimani is a bad guy, and give us an analogy for his relationship to Iran, to the Ayatollah and to the people of Iran. What would it be similar to in the United States?
Well, we don't have anything that is even remotely analogous to a lifelong leader. Khamenei has been in power since 1988. Okay, can you imagine Ronald Reagan still president? And Qassem Soleimani has been his right-hand man since the early 1990s. Whenever Khamenei wants some dirty deed done outside of Iran, he turns to Qassem Soleimani. These days, he even turns to Qassem Soleimani to do things like bring in special troops to Baghdad to shoot protesters, because the protesters are protesting the Iranian control over Iraq's government. So we don't have anything like it. This is a relationship between those two men and a power structure that is completely foreign to us here in the United States.
All right, well, we're hearing a lot that why now? Why now? We knew he was a bad guy. Why right now? And obviously, it's a bizarre question because it indicates that there's a point, a definitive point in time at which something occurs, but the implication is it should never occur because there's going to be some sort of blowback or some sort of response if you kill the guy. How should this listening audience, how should America understand and respond to the question, why kill this bad guy now when you can be, as Geraldo said the other day on Fox and Friends here, we were swatting bees, now we've killed the queen bee, and now we really got a mess on our hands.
Well, now if you want to use that analogy, which it's not one that I prefer, but now we've killed the queen bee and the hive is leaderless. They don't know what to do. And by the way, I have predicted in print, and I will continue to say that on radio with you and others, I think the killing of Qassem Soleimani will defang the Iranian regime. The person who has replaced him as the head of the Quds force knows. We know who he is, we know where he is, and we know where he's going. And should he dare to launch another attack such as they were making on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, should he dare do something like that, he will follow in the footsteps of Qassem Soleimani, and he will know martyrdom, as they call it, very soon. I think you asked why now, Tom. I think the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and the President have both been very clear. The attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad was something that they would not tolerate. The Iranians clearly intended to take over the embassy in a repeat of 1979 in Tehran. And this was Qassem Soleimani's doing. He had come back to Baghdad to oversee that operation. I think that's the only way to read it. That is the only way to read it. He came back to Baghdad to oversee that operation, and President Trump said, not on my watch. Compare this attack on the embassy to what happened in Benghazi, under Obama. There was no rescue attempt to our men in Benghazi. Here, as soon as the first attack occurred, this president mobilized 100 U.S. Marines in Kuwait and flew them up there within the hour, right, to secure the embassy.
Pretty amazing. Amazing.
What a difference having a president makes.
Good. I can. I want you to do something a little differently now for our audience. Tom Trento, your host, 11:44 in the morning. WNN 1470. We have Ken Timmerman, Middle East expert on Iran. KenTimmerman.com. Go to his website, please, and stay in touch with Ken. Ken, right now, Khomeini calls you up and says, Ken Timmerman, I'm sending my private jet for you. Come, I need your advice. I have to fight the great Satan. We got the little Satan over here, but the great Satan has attacked us. Ken Timmerman, I need your advice. How should I respond to the great Satan, the United States, and Donald Trump? How do you advise the Iranians to respond at this point?
That's a very funny question, Tom. The Iranians consider me as the head of the CIA's covert operation to get rid of their regime. So, assuming that role for a second,
right? We're red teaming this. We're red teaming it.
Does not exist. Yeah. I really wish there was such a program at the CIA, but I fear that if there were, they would screw it up, as they've screwed up so many other things recently. But just assuming, for the sake of your fictitious scenario here, Mr. Supreme Leader, I suggest that you hop on your jet immediately and leave the country and turn it over to the free people of Iran. It's not going to happen. But
do they have any? I mean, what are they going to do, Ken? What can they do now?
They are quaking in their boots right now. They are very afraid because they know whoever launches an attack that kills Americans from now on is going to be killed. They know that. And they appeared there. I wrote in Front Page Mag a couple of days ago. I said, what this really did was break the aura of invincibility that has surrounded not just Qassem Soleimani, but the regime for all these years. They have appeared invincible. You've had massive demonstrations in the street. Nothing has happened. You've had military defeats in Syria at the hands of the Israeli Air Force and at the hands of U.S. Special Forces. Nothing's happened to the regime. Now, all of a sudden, the top terror master of the regime has been killed in a U.S. Special Forces operation. They know they're on the run. They are on the run. There is nowhere for them to hide. They have to basically go to ground and stop their aggressive actions, or they will pay from now on a big price, and they know it.
All right, folks, here's the situation. It's 11:47 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host. I have Ken Timmerman on, Middle East expert on Iran. Go to his website, KenTimmerman.com. And what Ken is explaining here is that since 79, since all this stuff happened, Iran has been at war with the United States. But you hear this term, through a proxy war. That means they use others to fight us somewhere. And therefore they have deniable culpability. And, we didn't do it. Oh, the Houthis did it in Yemen. Or, that was Hezbollah in Lebanon. We don't have anything to do with it. Everybody knows. It's the biggest stupid elephant in the room. Everybody knows Iran's behind it. But President Bush couldn't do anything about it. President Obama assisted Iran in getting worse. So Iran kept growing and growing their proxy war against the United States, using others to fight us and to fight the Israelis. We're very familiar with what's going on in Israel and Syria. And if this were a international chess board, Donald Trump takes his king and goes, oh, checkmate. He jumps over all the proxy stuff, and he says, Iran, from now on, I don't care if somebody in Idaho, gets hit by somebody who says they're an Iranian Quds force, we're taking out something in the country of Tehran. And this is frightening. Let me open it up to the folks in our control room. Mark, you had a comment.
Yeah, two comments, Ken. Number one is, do we not owe a debt of gratitude to Obama for the death of Soleimani? Because, I mean, seriously, he made him feel so, it reminds me of the scene in Goodfellas where he's buddying up to him. Oh, yeah, drink, shakes, yeah, we love you. Go sit in the car with the boom. There's a bullet in the back of his head. That's kind of the way I see this whole, I mean, we really do owe Obama, unintentionally, but I think we do owe him a debt of gratitude in that.
I'll hold my gratitude, but I get the point.
Where Soleimani is asking Donald Trump, "Do you have a pallet of cash for me, waiting for me?" And then the next frame Trump says, "Sure, meet you at the Baghdad airport."
That was pretty funny.
Well, here's a serious question: is saving face in the Iranian culture is very important. Do you agree?
Yes, but saving your life is even more important.
Well, that's true, but they have a real true problem because the wife of Soleimani came out and says, the Iranian government needs to avenge my husband's death, and that's very huge.
The daughter,
and his daughter.
Yeah, it was his
daughter. I'm sorry. His daughter says, he needs to be avenged, and the Iranian government, through Islamic culture, has to have this retribution. I mean,
Khomeini himself said, "We will avenge your father." And so, but you can't get any more direct than that.
Yeah. So
here's a recent history lesson, or an example from recent history. Imad Mubnieh, who was the deputy of Soleimani, right? He worked with Soleimani. He was the Lebanese Hezbollah leader who killed 241 Marines in Beirut in October 1983, and has carried out so many other attacks as well. When he was killed in a probable Israeli operation in Damascus, Syria, in February of 2008, his son announced at the funeral exactly the same thing. He said, "We're going to avenge my father's death, and we're going to rain fire and blood on Israel and America as well." And the Iranians said things like that too. And guess what happened, Mark? You remember all of those big Hezbollah attacks that took out the Israeli prime minister, don't you? Oh, I'm sorry. Those never happened. It never happened. There was never any Hezbollah retaliation for the justified killing of Imad Mubnieh, a murderer with the blood of innocents on his hands. And I'm willing to predict to you today, right here on these airwaves, there will not be a Iranian government retaliation for the killing of this murderer, Qassem Soleimani, either.
Well, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. That's Ken Timmerman, Tom Trento, your host, 1151. Dr. Ronnie Wexler is here, who was born and raised and fought there and goes back, regularly. Ronnie, you got to weigh in. What do you think? Is Ken out of his mind, or are the Iranians? What do you think, Ronnie?
Very interesting. Hello, Ken. You and I spoke many times before. You were going to come with me to Israel 7 years ago. It's not too late for you. You can join Tom and myself and the other team. And May 2020, we're going back to Israel. So we'll talk more about it. But what I want to say.
We'll do it. I would love to do that.
Well, come over. Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, we want you to come. I was listening to the radio today in Israel, and the term "Chaim Kashigra" means probably nothing to anybody here, but what it means, life is going on as usual. Nothing happens in Israel. And the reason for it, I think, and you will agree with me 100%, is that Iran or anybody else for Iran never needed any reason to attack Israel. They could have done that anytime they wanted to, and to find now this situation as the reason to attack is ludicrous. It's not going to happen. And Chaim Kashigra, meaning life is as usual, really tells the story in Israel. We are not looking to have war with Iran, and we are not looking to provoke anybody, but we are willing to set up ourselves to take anything coming in and to throw everything we have on them. And I don't think there's any fear in the world, in anybody's in Israel today, unless they are the Marxist and the extreme left wings of the government, that anything is going to happen. We're more worried about the storms that are now in Israel and too much rain come all of the sudden, and we're dealing with this now and not with Iran. So I would like to say that I appreciate everything you have said about the Iranian situation, and I can say that I'm 100% in agreement with you, and more importantly, I'm looking forward to have you in Israel with us and share your experience with the group.
That would be great. That would be. I'll get you more information on that, Ken. We're going May 18th through the 29th on a national security special election mission. You'd be great on it, but I'll get you that. But we have Midwest Dick in here. Dick is from the Midwest. He runs our Sharia Crime Stoppers webinars, and we got to get Ken on the program there, where you can interact with the audience. Midwest Dick, you got a question?
Yes, Ken. This may be part of an ongoing conversation for another time, but I am aware of Midwest presence from Iranian supporters. That is, there are plenty of mosques in the Midwest of the United States that outwardly support the Iranian regime. I'm just curious, in your work, do you have a quick comment about assets for supporting Iran in America?
Absolutely. Every 4 years, when there is an Iranian presidential selection, the regime reveals its supporters by opening up polling stations across the United States. They know that people like me and folks in the opposition are onto them. 12 years ago or so, or 14, 15 years ago, they used to put out a map a week ahead of time. Well, once they put out the map, we would go to all these locations, try to get local police and law enforcement and FBI engaged and shut them down. And we managed to do that in the beginning. Now they only put the map up about 12 hours before the polling stations are open, but we still go after them. Now, what does this show? It shows, as you just mentioned, that they have a very strong support network here in the United States. People with money who are not affected by the U.S. sanctions could go out and rent polling stations and do other things as well. I've also written a number of years ago about some of these Shia mosques in the United States. They have been funded, many of them, and I mean dozens of them, have been funded by grants from the Alavi Foundation in New York, which is an Iranian government front finally exposed by the U.S. government at the very end of the Bush administration in 2008, and they were shut down. But for decades, they had been funding Shia mosques essentially as outposts of the regime in Tehran right here in America. And you look at the map, Dick, they are all over the country. They're in the East Coast, they're in the West Coast, they're in the Midwest, they're in the mountain states, they're in the South. They are everywhere. They are everywhere. And they are outposts of the Tehran regime.
All right. This can go on and on. We have to bring the show to a close. Regrettably, we'll have to have you back, Ken, for sure. But I was monitoring the news the other day doing something, and I hear one of the subject matter experts on Al Jazeera or CNN talk about, there's Hezbollah cells in Dearborn. I went, what? Somebody actually said that. We know that. We've been there. Dick's from that area. Hey, Ken, I got to let you go. We will have you back. This is an ongoing thing. We appreciate your work. Thank you very much. If we can do anything we can do to help you, you let us know. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Timmerman, just the way it sounds.com. Go to his website. Ken, take care. God bless. Okay?
Thanks so much to all of you. God bless you, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
All right, Tom Trento here, bringing the show to a close. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the evangelical rally we were at with the president Friday. It was critically important for responding to Iran and for the future. And then Wednesday, we're going to bring you the Declaration of Independence, but also we're monitoring all the stuff going on in Iran. Tom Trento saying goodbye for our crew, Ronnie Wexler, Midwest Dick, and Jay Mark. We'll see you tomorrow.